we are live.
All right. Welcome to Owning Divorce. I'm Aaron Katz.
And I'm Curtis Pryce.
Hope everyone's doing okay. So some fun and exciting news. We got 3 new subscribers today in our Facebook group. I sent out like a mass invite to friends and family. Didn't invite my parents and a couple aunts and uncles for obvious reasons. But my nephew and 2 of my friends joined up. So I think we're at a whopping 7 right now.
Awesome, man.
And your sister, I think it's your sister, joined our Instagram group. I don't know.
Oh, really?
It's a female with your same last name. So.
No, probably not, actually. We have different last names. Interesting.
Okay. I don't
Let me scope
know
it out.
then. Yeah, well, you should check it out. You should go on Instagram. It's someone that I thought was related to you, but I could be wrong. Okay, it could just be a random woman. So yes, we have people, and yeah, our shows, we're doing pretty good. We're getting a fair amount of viewers so far. I mean, not killing it, but we're north of 50 on each of our episodes that are out there.
Yeah, I actually just checked, and we're almost on 80 on the first 2 episodes. So it looks like I think people are watching the new ones and then going back and watching the originals because those are climbing steadily.
Nice. And I heard that your parents watched the last one.
Yeah, it was funny because I've since rewatched it just to like, what did they hear? And I went back through it, man, and it's funny because at the beginning I'm like, oh, well, I haven't had the nerve to tell my parents yet. So cat's out of the bag. It caused a bit of it got the family riled up. I think a cousin found it and passed it around. So siblings have seen it. Some of the nieces and nephews have seen it. It's gone around. And it kind of caused a blowout. I was hanging out with my parents, and they knew about my past, right? They knew about like the exotic dancer website, and they knew about me and my ex doing stuff, but they didn't know it was a current thing. I think they thought it was something that died off, and suddenly my lifestyle, my sex drive changed. So it came out.
I told you my parents watched it, but they only watched the first episode because my mom's told me, we don't want to hear about your sex life. We'll support you in everything that we do. We think it's great. It's what you're doing, but we don't want to hear about your sex life. And I think that's fine. I can accept that my parents don't want to hear about what I'm up to.
Did he listen to just the intro or the first episode?
The intro, the 15-minute one, not the first episode.
Yeah. What drives me crazy is I'm like, why? Like you have, like I said, I rewatched it just to be like, what went on. By the way, on the rewatch, I'm like, this is actually fantastic. Like I stand by this. I stand by this product.
Yeah.
It's like I laughed the whole time. I was having a good time. But you have 3 warnings in there. Like, this is gonna get raw. Don't listen to this if you don't want to hear this. I'm like, why are you still listening?
I just want to make sure that people know that, it's, I mean, you go, I don't have much detail to go into. I think you have some more detail that you go into, and you have permission of the woman, of your girlfriend, to do this. None of the women that I've dated, I have permission from them to go into detail. So I'm not going to go into detail. If me and the potential current get to that point, maybe at that point I will, but that's something that a couple months off at least. And knowing my track record, in a month and a half, it'll probably be over. So
well, it definitely don't have to listen then.
Well, yeah, seriously, definitely don't want to have her listen to that. But God, I just blanked. I was in the middle of.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
But
I'm glad your parents, man.
I'm glad you put that warning in there, because now I can go to them and say, like, what? Why would you still listen?
Why are you listening?
Aaron was there warning you.
Yes, I put something in there explicitly saying, hey, you might not want to hear this. This is going to get a little graphic. So fast forward just a little bit. So yeah, I mean, your parents were warned. I mean, I put the warning in there for
absolutely
a reason.
Warned.
I was thinking in case anybody, my parents or aunts and uncles, would want to listen to this, they'd get to a point and be like, oh, I don't want to hear about, explicit detail. So let me fast forward a couple of minutes. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely, man.
You should bring that up to them.
I will for sure, and I appreciate the warnings because now I'm like, you opted in. Um,
It's your
but
fault. You knew what you were getting yourself into.
yeah, for sure. I for anybody who's like on a kink journey, on a poly journey, um, there you usually don't go through that and get to that place without dealing with a lot of shame and kind of internal guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really interesting to hear um hear that from my parents. I
Mm-hmm.
think I don't remember if we talked about it, but this episode's probably going to be a little bit more raw and a little bit more heavy
Yeah,
because of the
yeah.
topic of parents and family.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized like I've I was raised with shame when around sex, like I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
have been, and guilt with things I did as a kid, like trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So to feel that coming back from them at my age was like it was really a good experience because I got to separate like, okay, this is me, these are my values, and now I'm feeling what I was raised with. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of a good reminder.
Mm-hmm.
They're really Christian.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Hey, you mentioned your parents are religious.
yeah, pretty religious there. And it's funny because the first thing that came to my mind was like, wait a minute. The first time I ever heard of like multiple wives or multiple partners was like my dad explaining to me about Abraham and how he had
Mm-hmm.
multiple wives. There was like Sarah
He
and I
did.
forget the other ones.
He had
Like,
4. Yeah.
yeah, see,
He had 4,
like
man. Yeah, yeah.
that's the first time I had the idea that this was a possible thing.
The weird thing about that story is his current one of his first wife, or one of his wives, decided that he needed to have another wife. So it was kind of one of the wives convinced him to get. I think it was his first and second wife convinced him to get his third and fourth wife. So
That's a good woman.
yeah, I guess so.
Was she just sick of him? Did she need some extra help in the house?
Well, according to the Bible, and given it's been many years since I've studied this, his first wife gave him a couple kids, and his second wife was barren, so she decided to get him married to their maid. And then the maid popped out 2 kids, and the first wife was worried that she'd fall behind the second wife, even though the second wife didn't have kids and the third wife did. So then she had him marry the other maid. Man, this is sounding like a porno, isn't it? Like,
Well, you know what's funny?
seriously.
Because like I have family in a Central American country,
Yeah.
and a lot of those uncles, they've like hooked up with their maids, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger hooked up with his maid. There's something with
Yeah.
maids, man. Dangerous
It's
territory.
a it is. It's a thing, you know. Um, it's weird. So I grew up observant too. I grew up Orthodox Jewish, and I remember reading this stuff, especially when I was like 15 and 16, and being like, "Wow, there's some really like kinky things in here." So the beginning of Kings, which is one of the extension books, at the beginning of
Oh,
it, King David's on his deathbed, and his buddies decide to get him a prostitute on his deathbed, or a
whoa.
concubine for warmth is the exact words. Yeah, no, you read it up.
Oh,
It's in like the
yeah.
the
Concubines
first like
definitely.
10 sentences. It's like King David was cold, so blah blah blah, and his wisdom got him a concubine for warmth. And I'm like, interesting. This is like one of the holiest men in Judaism. And it's right there in the beginning that his buddies got him a prostitute to keep him warm while he was dying, or a
Well, David
concubine
was
for warmth.
David was notorious, and plus, well,
Yeah.
side note, who doesn't need a little warmth?
Who
But
doesn't? I just,
uh,
shouldn't they have left that out if they want to make him a holier than that? I don't know. A holier than thou
I don't think it
character,
was a
but
deal back then. I think that was
yeah.
just like the man had plenty of resources. He
Yeah.
was a
I mean,
happy
he
man.
was a king, man. You know, he was a king. So
King David was actually one of my favorites, right? He wrote Psalms and all that
no,
stuff.
no, he didn't write Psalms, did he?
I think it
Oh,
was
maybe he
Psalms and
did.
Proverbs.
Oh, right, he did write it. I don't know. It's, I grew up with all this
Poetry.
stuff. He did
It
write
was it
poetry.
was poetry and it was full of sex too, man. It was sexy poetry. I loved it as a kid.
Nice. Yeah.
That's how I remember King David. And he was supposed to be
Okay.
wise and all that stuff too.
Yeah. And his son Solomon had like 40 wives or something.
Yeah, King Solomon. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. It's been a while since we. I don't think we've ever talked Bible before, man.
No, we never have, but we both grew up in observant households, so we probably both have some strange, useless knowledge. So yeah.
So the whole episode with my parents, it's still kind of unresolved.
Okay.
It, like I said, it took some effort to get to this point with sex positivity.
Mhm.
So I got to follow up with them. I got to have a conversation. Like they've been great. Like they both came that night. Like it got loud. They
Yeah,
came by and they both told me they loved me. I told them I love them, but it was just I was upset.
I can
Um,
imagine.
and so I need to circle back. I might try to help them understand my lifestyle since they seem to care about the gory
Hmm.
details. And I've got to set some boundaries before I'll feel
Hmm.
comfortable, being 100% real with them. Um, on on the plus side, I've gotten a lot of support from the younger generation of my family, the kids.
The kids.
They've
Oh,
um,
those crazy kids.
actually, so the person that joined the Instagram, that's actually my niece. So
Oh, it's your
yeah,
niece.
I,
Okay,
I
okay.
double checked.
I
Yeah, for last
didn't.
time, that's my niece.
Okay. Eh.
And she told me she enjoyed the podcast, and another younger family member has shared it with her poly friends,
Uh,
who thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm glad to hear that.
oh, funny note. I almost invited your ex to the Facebook group. I was going
Don't
through the
do that.
list. I did not. I was clicking on them. I was being very careful on who it was because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't family members. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should not invite her to that.
Thanks, I
So
appreciate that.
I did invite my neighbor who spies on me for my ex and a
So your ex
buddy of
knows. We'll know.
so my ex is going to know about it at some point. So I'm very curious what's going to happen. But yeah, I did not invite her ex. I was very like, I looked at that and I'm like, oh, that would be bad. I mean, she's
Yeah, I
gonna
appreciate it.
find out sooner or later, is my guess.
Yeah,
But
I think so too.
I think it would be something that hopefully a couple months more down the line, once you two have things a little bit more set. I mean, it sounds like you guys have things reasonably set, but there's still minor details, and plus you have a child, so
Yeah,
having to
I
work that out.
yeah, for sure. Um, my parents brought that up too. Like, what's she gonna think? And I'm like, she knows who I am. She knows about my past. I don't think she's gonna be shocked about
Hmm.
who I am now because it's the same person I was when I met her. So I don't think it'll be too shocking.
That's true.
The other kind of cool thing to come out of it is my girlfriend had decided not to listen to the podcast, like any episodes, because she just didn't
Hmm.
want to hear. Like she wanted me to be able to feel free to talk about everything and just be me.
All right.
She wanted me to have to worry about filtering for her. But then with all the hoopla, she listened and she actually said it was great. She's never met
That's
you,
cool.
and so she was like, "Oh, now I know Aaron," and
Oh, cool.
she was like,
I
"It was
def
really
I
entertaining."
I definitely want to meet her. I like that video that you posted on Facebook with playing Bad Touch by Bloodhound Gang. That was kind of cool. So I put it on Facebook as one of my. It came up on Pandora because I'm old and I refuse to evolve, and I put it on. I'm like, this has to be one of my favorite songs of all time. Like it came out in the late 90s where club music was really big. So it had this club sound, which was hilarious. And then it just kind of made fun of club music. So I remember walking around downtown Boston and this really expensive BMW, and you heard, which is pretty common in Boston back then. You know, you had club kids whose family had money and they're blasting it, and the guys roll down the windows and they're playing Bad Touch, and I'm like, my people, nice. So I put that on Facebook as one of my favorite songs of all time, and then you sent me a video of you and your ex, not your ex, you and your current. God, that was a bad one. You and your current in your car singing out to that song. So
It was
she seems cool.
Thank you, man. Yeah, no, she is cool. It's funny because like you had shared the link and I'd clicked it and I was just playing it and she just started singing along and then I think she recorded us singing and I was like, yeah.
Nice,
So yeah,
nice.
I'll send it back to him since you got us down that path.
Yeah.
Um, but
So she liked it.
she knows it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
not the song or the podcast.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
No worries,
Yeah.
no worries.
She laughed. She thought it was really entertaining. She liked our dynamic. And I told her, we're just essentially video recording our regular conversation.
That's where the idea came from. That was like 6 months ago. I'm like, yeah, we should do a podcast on this. And you're like, yeah, we should.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
But I was really hopping into the topic to talk about our families and parents and how things were with the exes and our families and what happened there.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with, how your ex was with your family?
Oh, that was brutal. So up until 2 years, up until the divorce, me and my parents and my sibs, we weren't really close for probably about 20 years. Like I'd see them a couple times. I'd talk to them every once in a while. But as a teenager, so I'm the youngest of five, and everyone kind of, I'm trying to think of the right word. I was the baby of the family, so I was babied a fair amount. One of my
We're both babies.
Yeah. I didn't know you were a baby too.
That's what's wrong with us, man.
I know, man. We're just the spoiled babies. So my sister that I didn't get along with loved to point it out that I was a spoiled child, that I got away with everything. And then my brother, who is 4.5 years older than me, he's the second youngest. A couple times in my 20s admitted that I probably had it the hardest. My dad was the hardest on me versus any of the sibs. I have nothing to compare it to, so I don't really know. My dad was a Navy guy, so he was stern and strict at some point. But yeah, I never told you this. My dad went to Annapolis Naval Academy.
My birth father was also in the Navy.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So my dad was in the Navy till mid-40s, I think. So yeah, my dad, my dad has pictures of me when I was 2 years old on an aircraft carrier with a little sailor's outfit.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, it's super cute.
Did you move
That's
around
when I had
a
my
bunch?
blonde hair. What? Yeah.
Oh,
we
wow,
did.
I didn't know that.
My dad retired when I was 6, but I mean, I thought it was normal. We didn't settle in Chicago till I was 8, so I thought it was normal for families every 2 to 3 years to move to a new city.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I
I always thought you were just
that.
from Chicago your whole life.
8 to 18 is when I lived in Chicago.
Wow.
But I'm originally from Southern California, Long Beach, actually.
What? Well, that makes sense. Because the Navy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Or I forgot it.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, no, I was born in Long Beach. I don't know. When I lived down there, I always talked about going down to the neighborhood where I was born and finding my old house. I never did that. It's not like I remember. We were 3 when I moved away. So I don't remember it. And then we lived in DC till I was 6. And then my parents moved to Israel. Family moved to Israel for 2 years, and I was there for 6 and 7. And then when I turned 8, my family settled in Chicago.
Wow, I do remember the time in Israel. I just assumed you're from Chicago. Wow. Well, if you're coming to SoCal, we can find your old address, I'm sure.
I need to get it from my folks. I'm sure we can drive by. I'm sure the house looks very different. We can do a picture of it now. And then the other side, a picture of what it looked like 42 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I dig it.
I'm sure it's the exact same, right? Because nobody in Southern California updates their houses at all.
Never. Sorry, but I cut you off. So you're talking about your siblings yourself.
Oh, yeah. So, my parents are observant Jews, and I've mentioned this probably about 1,000 times at this point. So they're very rigid they have laws that they do on a daily basis. Like my dad prays 3 times a day. They keep kosher. They have 2 sets of dishes, and the whole thing about not mixing milk and meat. And the Sabbath, from Friday night to Saturday night, there's no electricity.
Yeah. Oh man. So my parents are Seventh-day Adventist, and we've got the same thing.
Yeah. They do
Friday to Saturday.
Yeah. So you know all this stuff.
I do.
And my ex grew up in a non-observant household that was more culturally Jewish. So for them, Friday night dinner was a family thing. It wasn't really about religion. So she clashed with my family a fair amount, just cultural differences, different values. And she had problems understanding that, for my parents, this wasn't a cultural or a lifestyle choice. This was a religion. This is a way of being.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So every time she saw my family, I dreaded it because, she would ask why my family is a certain way, and my family would ask why she's a certain way. And there just was no way of kind of bridging that gap. So in 2018, we went down to San Diego. My parents, since they retired, they spent, January, February, March in San Diego. So me and my ex went down there for a weekend. And she was just so bratty that weekend. My parents a couple years ago also went vegan, which actually has improved the food quality because kosher food is absolutely horrible. All vegan food is kosher, but vegan is actually a little more flavorful.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But, Saturday we were just sitting around doing nothing. And to my parents' credit, the last 10 years, they'll just give me keys to their car. And even though they don't like me using their car, I'll use it and I'll go do things. So was it Sunday morning? My dad goes to services. And my dad always gets involved with his Jewish community stuff. My dad's like super into Jewish community. He got an award a couple years ago at his current synagogue. He helped them do this major redesign because my dad has a background in portfolio property management. So everywhere he goes, he gets really involved. And my ex was getting hangry. So it was like 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning and she didn't have anything to eat and she's getting really annoyed. So, we all hop into my parents' car and drive into like one of the neighborhoods in San Diego. And my parents are doing their usual bickering back and forth. I mean, it's something that I think all couples do at a certain point. If you've been together for more than, 10 years or whatever, you start to bicker a little bit. And my ex gets so annoyed that she crosses her hands like this. She does, where her fingers go into where her armpits are and starts holding her breath. Because she's so angry. Yeah. Because she's so hangry. And I look at her and I'm like, really, you can't, like, I understand why, but I've always been able to, there's certain scenarios with her family where I get annoyed, but I just turn on my phone instead. I check on ESPN, or I think in the past, I'd sing the Pokemon song, Gotta Catch 'Em All, to myself when I'm at her place and when I'm at my ex's family's place and just annoyed.
Do you really sing it to yourself?
Oh, yeah, I did for a long time. I don't remember it now. It's been like 2-3 years ago, but I started thinking about it. Yeah, it's that and checking sports scores. It kept me calm. So we get to this restaurant, and my parents have been really, really laid back since they retired. So we go to this restaurant, this vegan restaurant, and all the dishes are named after like gratitude or bliss or something along those lines. It's a Southern California chain. You probably, if you haven't been there, you probably know people that are there. And after you order something, so if you order bliss, the waiter says, "You are at bliss," or "You are grateful," or "You are that." Right? It's really weird.
Whoa, no, I
know
don't
my
think I've been
parents
there.
got really into it. Yeah, they have a couple in Southern California. I'll look it up. I was just watching a TV show that took like a comedy sketch that took place in Southern California, and they make fun of the restaurant. My ex is allergic to nuts. This isn't some made up thing. When we were in Boston for a friend's wedding about 10, 15 years ago, she had a couple of almonds, went for a run, and almost passed out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was at my friend's bachelor party and I got this phone call and then ended up meeting her at the hospital. I mean, she was all puffed out and everything.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most vegan food is made with nuts. So we get there and she looks at the menu and she's like, "Well, I can't order anything." So she mentions it to the waitress, and the waitress it says, "Oh, we have a special menu for that's nut free." So she brings out a tablet, and of course she has a problem getting the tablet going. The tablet is the same menu we were handed. I don't know what the big deal was, but it's the exact same options. There's no difference between that. It's just the menu on a tablet. So she was already annoyed at that point. She figures out a couple of options, but I mean, she was on the verge of exploding. And my parents loved this place. They were happy as can be. So we got into a fight at the airport, of course. And every time that she visited my family on the airport back, me and my ex always got into a fight.
Do you think she's just like releasing like the pent up anger or what?
Yeah. My parents are very regimented, and because they're religious in what they're doing, and she grew up in a household where Judaism is more fluid. It's more, if you feel like doing it, you'll do it. And it annoyed her. She couldn't, I don't know if accept it. And my parents couldn't relax it because it's a religion. It's their dogma. I think I used dogma correctly. So we'd always get into a fight on the airport on the way home. Coincidentally, her mom would always get into a fight with her dad on the way back from their grandparents' place in Florida, I found out midway through our marriage. So her mom used to do the same thing with her dad while her dad was alive.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, and juxtapose that with how I dealt with her family, who, her dad, who passed away of cancer. And I kind of talked about one of this being probably the beginning of the end of our marriage after her dad passed. I think something just changed between us. I was there, I took him to his hospital, to his appointments. I visited him in the hospital. Me and him had a very serious conversation after he found out that he was going to die, where I promised to look after my ex and my ex's mom. To this day, I still feel sad that I wasn't able to keep that up. There is some regret right there. You promise something, and I still feel very close to my ex's dad. I want to. Was it 6 years ago? In February is when he passed. So I don't have a car, so I'm probably gonna rent a car and go to his grave site. And I might leave. We were both baseball fans. I have this Cubs jersey from when I worked at Wrigley Field. I might leave that at his grave site. So I was very close with him, and I was there the morning that he passed. And I have this great old beaten up leather bomber jacket that he gave to me when I used to come up we lived in Southern California, and we came up to Seattle. Seattle's always colder. I'd borrow it from him. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And one of his dying wishes was to make sure that I had the jacket. And then after he passed, I did a lot to make sure that, her mom was taken care of. And, during, not the funeral, but about a month or two later, they had they rented out a hall, and they had a slideshow. And I was basically running around for 3 or 4 hours, making sure that everything was done that needed to be done. Her uncle forgot a flash drive with a bunch of images on them. So I had to drive from one end of town to the other end of other end of Seattle during, basically I missed out the whole event just to get the slides there eventually. Turns out that he had the flash drive on him after all. He just didn't realize he had the flash drive on. It is what it is.
It's always user error.
Yeah, always user. If you're in tech, you realize that there's a fair amount of user error with it. His daughter had a really great line at the end. She went up to me and gave me a big hug and thanked me and says, "Sorry, my dad's an idiot." And I'm like, yeah, no worries. I mean, there's a lot of emotion going on. I completely understand. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. So when we split, right, when she walked out and I spoke to my parents, My parents and my friends were very, very worried because they knew how much I relied on her and how much I looked at my marriage as the source of my happiness. They were worried that I'd fall apart.
So
Yes.
when you say you relied on her, what do you mean?
So the morning of, if you asked me what the most important thing in my life was, I'd say my marriage. What I'm most afraid of losing would be her. You know, everything that I thought of was for her. My whole life revolved around her. And I spent a fair amount of my adult life following her around for her career, which is in academia. So we moved from Boston to Southern California because she got a job at a pharmaceutical company in Southern California. Then we moved into UCLA housing because she got into UCLA for her master's program. And then I ended up coming up here, kicking and screaming to Seattle so she could finish off her PhD. So I spent a fair amount of my life following her around. And, you know, my career I'm doing good where I'm at, but it definitely, I think my career would have probably been I would have been further along in my career if I didn't spend a fair amount of my adult life following her around, where she, at this point, has her PhD. She's doing research that she wants. She's very excited about it, and I'm happy for her. I just feel like I might have taken a step or two back following her. Gotcha. And it was very obvious. So everyone was really worried that I'd fall apart. And then everyone was really surprised, where I just felt really great. And a lot of friends of mine who knew me pre my ex said, wow, we haven't seen you this happy in 20 years. You haven't feel like we got the old Aaron back, you know, in college, the outgoing guy, the guy with the whatever, let it ride lifestyle, you know, like not a lot got to me. You know, something happened and I just reacted and I moved on. You know, I was just a happy-go-lucky guy. And that's who I've been the last 2 years. So my mom, and I've mentioned this before, my mom loves saying, she said this probably about 5 or 6 times. She says, you know, nobody really liked her. We just dealt with her because you loved her.
Aw.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a little difficult. My sister in San Diego and her husband have always been very sweet and accommodating towards me. Her husband mentored me a little bit out of college. Me and him talked a little bit about career paths until I was in sales for a brief period of time after college. So he is kind of a bit of a sales guru. So me and him would talk a fair amount. When I went into teaching, that ended, but we still talked a fair amount. And for some reason, and I'm still not really sure, and I'm not saying who's at fault, but my sister and my ex didn't get along. And, you know, the last 2 years, I've been really reconnecting with my sister in San Diego. We talk a couple of times a year. Her kids are great. Her husband is this awesome curmudgeonly dude that I get along with really well. And she says, listen, we don't have any hard feelings towards her. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that, but it doesn't mean anything. You know, I understand that you and her did not get along, whatever the reason is. And I'm not upset about it. Now, her family, I played a pretty central role. So they must have done a lot to villainize me. So every year they had a white elephant and I always emceed it. And I treated it like I treated my special ed students when I was a teacher, which is you only give a couple instructions at a time. You don't overwhelm people. And because of that, it was a lot of fun. Everyone had a good time. You know, you'd have about 20 to 30 people. So I'd keep track of whose turn it was, how many times gifts have been stolen from someone else. And I'm not doing that anymore. So I'm pretty sure I know who's doing my place, but you know, I don't know if they're able to.
Still your job.
Still my job. That's okay. I hated it. I mean, I like doing it, but I'm happy, you know, I'm happy to let someone else do that. And there was every week we'd see her mom and dad once because we're in the same city.
Oh, wow.
Or I'd see my folks twice a year.
Yeah, because of travel, I assume.
Yeah. Your scenario is very different because both you and your ex and your families both live in Southern California.
We do. Yeah, do you mind if I go into?
Go. Yeah. I've been talking too much as always.
No problem. We get this here. Boom. There's so my ex and my family, they I think it was a similar situation. Like they loved her because I loved her.
Mm-hmm.
Um and like she loved them in her own way. I know she did.
That's good.
Because she worried about them and she put in the effort to take care of them in the way that she takes care of people. Like
Oh,
she would
nice.
do things for them. But my family's very warm and physical and a lot of attention. And I think they're really intense for her.
Mm.
She's just a lot more quiet and downtime. And like my family, like anytime somebody comes home, like everybody goes, greets that person and welcomes them in, gives them a hug, spends a little time chatting with them. And I know there were times where like she would come home, they'd have spent the week like watching my daughter because she was traveling. They were helping me
Mm.
out, and she'd be she'd be tired or stressed, and she'd be like, "Hey," and then go to bed, or like go to a quiet space,
Yeah.
and that just would rub them the wrong way. But I know they cared for her. They love their granddaughter immensely, and that I think that's part of their relationship with her too. And I know they care and they worry about her too. Um, but it was never the relationship that they envisioned having with a daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Like, I think my mom and my sister wanted to go get nails done and go shopping and hang out in the kitchen, and that wasn't who my ex was. Um, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
with her family, I I feel like her mom was similar. Was like I know her mom was worried that I was gonna get her pregnant young and she was gonna drop out of school and have all these problems. And so there's always kind of this distance.
Yeah.
Um, but we hung out, we spent time together. There were we had some sweet times together. I really connected. Her parents were divorced, so I really connected with her dad, his new wife, and her kids, and I felt pretty connected to her siblings. That was always a great relationship. I really enjoyed her siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then, man, my stories are a lot shorter. No stories, just just the facts.
Ah.
But that's kind of where our relationship was at the time of the divorce. You had mentioned, our families being all together in SoCal. My parents are still a couple of hours drive from me, so I really
Oh,
didn't see
really?
them that often. And my ex and I
Where do
had,
your parents live?
I don't want to give out their public details, but they live a couple hours away from me.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
I'll,
sorry.
I'll tell you offline
My
now.
bad. I mean, I could just say my parents live in Chicago because it's a big city. But yeah, Southern
Yeah.
California has plenty of little towns and stuff. So yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
they're on the outskirts though. It takes a while to get to them. They're not in the
Okay.
major city part.
Yeah.
Um, but and I also think, like there were a couple things going on with me and my ex that we were both working and hustling.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were on the road a lot. There was several years where she and I both traveled a lot for work.
Mm-hmm.
So we just weren't around. And when we were home, we just wanted downtime together.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't see either family too much. Her her dad was a little bit more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
He would invite us out more. He'd come down our way, so I think we got to see him the most.
Mm-hmm.
But her mom also was busy and spent a lot of time commuting, so we didn't see her too often. And then my parents were just too far. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, to be honest, I also kept my distance with them for the reasons I mentioned. Like I felt like I couldn't be 100% myself. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I could only be. I feel like my parents are always trying to coach me. Like they have this like person they're trying to get me to, and so I can't relax around them. Um,
Yeah,
and as long as that exists, it's like it's hard to just like hang out.
I think a lot of parents, especially because my parents, I think, are the same way. And it might be something from religious people, or maybe it's just parents. They have this vision of who they want you to be. And it's not based on who you are, what you want to be. It's what they see as being best for you.
Yeah.
And I think we both had some conversations since, our exes, since we split with our exes. And with my parents, I've sat down with them and I've had 3 conversations with them about my future. And when I talk about future, I'm talking about dating, because I'm working, I have the job thing figured out, I have a house, I have a dog. They really want grandkids through me, or from me. And it's not something that's important to me. So I've had a couple conversations with them, and I know it's coming from the right place, but it's just completely wrong for my lifestyle. I'm not saying I definitely don't want kids. I dated a woman for a while who, her kid I mean, you know this whole thing where I dated this woman and I met her kid almost immediately. And of course, you and everyone else were saying that's a really big red flag. I'm like, oh, it's kind of cute. The kid warmed up to me, and the kid set up an account for me on their Netflix account as the dad account.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
no. The
Oh.
kid was lobbying really hard for me to be her stepdad. Like she looked at my spare bedroom, which I rent out, and she looked at it, and I know that she saw it as her room, as her future room. It didn't
Man.
work out. The woman, had a bit of a drinking problem, and by a bit, I mean, our last date, she ordered 3 bottles of wine. I got maybe 2 glasses of it, and she polished the rest of it.
Wow.
And yeah, no, she was a boozer.
That's a
And I have
lot.
a couple friends who are in recovery, I think is what it's called. They used to be out, they used to drink too much, and now they don't drink at all. And they told me, they're very honest. I'm like, you need to break up with this woman. Nothing you can do. It's not your job to fix her. And if you break up with her, you'll probably do more good to get her on the right path to drinking less than if you stayed with her. Because as long as you stay with her, you're giving an excuse that someone's going to be there to take care of her.
Yeah.
But when I was with her, it was the first time that I saw myself as a dad, or being a dad. So I'm not writing that off, but I've spent 20 years of my life chasing my ex and her dreams. And right now, in another 18 years, I'm a nerd, so I do all the math calculations, and I have this giant spreadsheet from retirement. And I could retire when I'm 60 and just take off and travel and never come back to Seattle and find a little beach hut somewhere on the other side of the world and live off the ocean until, I don't know. And that's kind of my plan. But, there's always the
Uh,
possibility. The
on the
potential current, I don't really know, has a kid. The woman that
Go
I've
ahead.
been
Go ahead. Go
seeing
ahead.
for a little over a month. She has a kid. I have not met the kid. The kid knows of me because I got her flowers on one of our dates. The woman, I got her flowers on a date like 2 weeks ago, and she brought it home and put it in a vase. And the week that she had her kid, our kid's like, "Oh, who gave you those flowers?" So the kid knows about me. I don't know the details the kid knows about me, and we've talked about this. And 6 months, a year down the line, if we're still together, I'll meet the kid. But it's way too early.
Yeah.
And my parents have talked to me about it. My parents have a couple things they want me to have
How
kids, but
how old is her daughter? Is it daughter or
daughter, yeah.
how old's her daughter?
She is 8 or 9.
Okay. There's just to put it out for anybody listening, there's a great book called How to Help Your Kids Cope with Divorce.
Mhm.
And it breaks it down by like age group, what they need, all the way from like infant to 18.
Oh,
And
cool.
there's specifically a section for like how to introduce that you're dating and how to introduce that you have a new significant other. Um, I'm I've got my own daughter who's much younger.
Mhm.
And so I'm keeping her separate. Sorry, did I cut you off, man?
No, go.
So I've got my own daughter. I've made the decision between a therapist and my ex that we're going to hold off introducing her to my girlfriend until my daughter's older, and I've actually talked to like a personal friend that's also a marriage and family therapist,
Mm,
and it seems like the recommendation is like a year. And
that
part of
sounds.
that is you want the child, you want to make sure that the relationship is secure, not going to last. Like it's harmful to have a bunch of people come in that they get close to and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Not
No.
pointing at anybody.
Ah,
Sorry, man.
no, it's totally cool. The woman that I dated, she was very open about her kid knowing everything that she's up to, and it was a decision that she made, and
Yeah, no, it's on
wasn't
her.
what
It's
I
on her.
would have
It's on her.
done.
For
It's
sure.
on her. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. No guilt, man. I was teasing.
Yeah. I mean, I have a dog, so it's not the same, but I mean, my dog's has some, I don't know how to explain it. Every time I bring a woman over to my place, um, Betty gives them the stink eye for like the first 2 or 3 days. She's kind of looking at them, being like, "You're not gonna last." I've seen a fair amount of you, and I'm not bragging. I've just dated a fair amount. So she's like, "You're not going to last. I don't want to get to know you." But by about date 4 or 5, she starts making an effort. So Betty, with the last couple times, is made a very good effort, and she knows that she's being demoted. That she doesn't get to sleep in bed with me when the current spends the night. So she understands these things. But the first time she came over, I went upstairs to use the bathroom, and I came down, and Betty's not vicious at all, but she's American Bulldog, so she looks a little intimidating. So she's sitting in the couch at attention, staring at, as the first time that comes over. And the potential current might have been a little freaked out, and she does that. Yeah.
Eddie probably thinks you're hers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm her world at this point,
Yeah.
I'm her dad, and she sleeps with me. I walk her, I feed her. But I think she knows that she has to make room for someone else in my life at some point. And at some point there's going to be a more permanent relationship. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be these 2-month relationships for the rest of my life. But when this happens, she knows that there's someone else who's a little more important, and she needs to know her place. And plus, she gets a lot of treats. I make these treats. I take like a bone, and I put peanut butter and food and dog food in, and I freeze it. So she gets a ton of those. So
Nice.
incentivizes her a little bit.
And that's the other concern. So the first one, again, that was like that, like a lot of people would come in their lives for kids. And the second one is that they would feel threatened, like Betty does, about their place.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like effort to help integrate them. My girlfriend has a 14-year-old, and things are a little different. Her mom was seeing me for like 4 months or so, and she was like, "Hey, who's this person you're spending all this time with?" She's like, "I want to meet him and quiz him."
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
How
she
was that
really wanted to
like?
meet me. It was a blast. Like she didn't grill me, but we got to know each other and we hung out. She's a great girl. Like she's really cool. She's 14, just started high school. Really has her head screwed on right, and she's a lot of
Nice.
fun. So like we try to do something with her twice a week, like once to twice a week, and we spent probably 6 hours together, just like getting breakfast and getting coffee, having lunch, and watching a movie this past week. So we had a good time.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, once they're in high school, they have that understanding of they understand dating a little bit, and they have a little bit more mature understanding of what's going on. So it's probably a very different ballgame. I think versus like 7 or 8 years old that doesn't really understand.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So how are things? I was gonna change topics. Are you ready to?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, go
Um,
for it. Go for it.
how
This is
how
free
did
form, man. Don't worry about it.
how did your family deal? Like, what happened to the families during divorce? Like, how
What
did your
happened
family
to the
react? How did her
families
family?
during divorce? Uh, Her mom told her that it's up to her what she wants to do. If she decides that she wanted to get back together with me, they'd accept that. Of course, once she left, I really think that she was hoping that when she came back that I'd grovel to have her back. And when she closed that door, I refused to let it open. You know, our conversation when I said let's get divorced, she said you don't want to go into marriage counseling, and I said no, I don't think there's a point. A lot of people told me to get marriage counseling. A lot of people really thought, friends, family, they were being supportive. They really thought that I'd fall apart without her. And as soon as she was out the door, you know, gave that story about having the best night of sleep that I've had in a decade. I said, no, I don't want her back. I don't need her back in my life. And, you know, as soon as she realized that, her mom sent me a text letting me know that she's kicking me off the family phone plan. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't, you know, I called and had to deal with a little bit of stuff, you know, and then now I have my own phone plan. But outside of that, I haven't really dealt. I think I saw her on a train, my ex's mom on the train, like not this past summer, but the previous summer. But,
Mhm.
you know, we kind of were on opposite ends and didn't really want to talk to each other. I don't
Oh,
know. So with my ex, I don't want to see ever again. And I'm totally happy if I go the rest of my life. Her mom, I think at some point it would be interesting to sit down and talk, just to see what her perspective on this whole thing was. You know, I know through my neighbor who spies on me, who gets drunk and tells me what my ex thinks, I know what's going on, but I'm kind of curious, you know, what my ex's mom thinks about it, how she analyzes it. And then there's been a couple friends of her family that I thought that I'd still maintain friendships with. You know, I tried to be cordial with it, and they just, you know, cut me out. And I understand it's not that big of a deal. I would have liked to have a conversation and sit down with these people, but you know, they've known my ex and her family for longer than they've known me, and it's a decision that they've made is what it
yeah,
is. All my friends and family, I told them they don't have to change any relationships. If they still want to have a friendship with her, any type of relationship with her, that's fine. I won't hold it against them. My uncle and aunt were the only two that really got along with my ex. And my dad was bothering me for about a month to go into marriage counseling with my ex and try to work things out. Then my uncle called my ex, and my ex just was rude. She's like, why are you calling me? And you know, my uncle's trying to be very diplomatic and try to figure out what's going on. And she said, you know, I want to thank you for, you know, being very polite and warm to me, but we're not getting back together. And then my uncle spoke to my dad, and I think the line is, when it's over, it's over. And after that, no one bothered me and my family about marriage counseling again.
yeah. Sorry to clear my throat there.
No worries, no worries. So, and the weird thing is I still felt the need to defend my ex when I was talking about divorce proceedings with mom and dad, and they'd say something. They wouldn't make a crack about my ex, but my ex was more, I hate to use the word emotional because that's so much negative connotation, but she was more emotional than me. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think a lot before I talk. I use a lot of filler words. You probably noticed at this point, or I slow things down. I have a learning disability since I was a child, and one of them is a processing deficit where I need to slow things down. I need to think about things. I'm very try to be very concise with what I say, and everything that I say has a purpose. And it's a result of having this, because if not, then I come off and I use a lot of filler words, and I always worry that I sound a little bit of an idiot. Watching these videos, I've seen, you know, when I'm just off the cuff, I use a lot of ums and make a lot of sounds and things along those lines. And I use actually things along those lines a lot. And I'm actively trying to work to try to have more of a refined sound.
I try to get rid of the us too, but it's pretty common. Like I
Yeah.
feel like most, 90% of people, 95% of people use them, and I think most people have to work to not do it.
Right. It takes a lot of effort not to. And it's just a personal thing that I want to do, that I want to work on. My ex, very smart woman. So she has confidence when she talks. So she can just talk off the cuff, and she's not worried about losing her cool.
Hmm.
If she's angry,
Wow.
she'll just yell and scream and do it once, but it's not something that she regrets. Me, I try to always maintain my cool. And if I lose, even on Facebook, if I get into a heated political argument on something stupid, because all politics on Facebook or social media is stupid, I feel bad afterwards. I really do. I've apologized. I did like a mea culpa on Facebook a couple weeks ago because I got way too involved in some stupid thing that's going on. I've left a fair amount of social groups because I felt like they got too political, and I didn't like the way that it made me feel, and I lost my cool. I try to always maintain my composure. I'm very big on that. She just let it fly. So, I was talking to my dad about this, and he said, she's very emotional. And I felt the need to defend her. I'm like, wait a second, I don't need to defend her. We're getting divorced. I've had to defend her to my parents for 20 years. I'm done doing this. I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, I've struggled with that as well too. Like, I want my parents to understand my ex, but it's like, where's that line where it's like, oh, well, this is actually how I think things work, or what she intended, or whatever. But yeah, it's tricky now too, especially after being divorced.
Mm-hmm.
There's during so if people have listened to the other episodes, I've been divorced twice. Um, I think the remaining family's relationships with the ex-spouse after divorce is really dictated by the relationship that the divorcees maintain.
Mm-hmm.
So like I know people who divorce and like their families are still close and they still hang out. I know people who have kids who still take vacations together, like
Yeah.
their new significant other take vacations with the kids and the other person that got divorced and their new significant other. Um, with my first ex, it was I think tricky because I grew up with her family. I was with her since I was
Mm-hmm.
like 14 through like 20 something. So like
Mm-hmm.
her siblings were like my siblings. Um, and I think it was hard for them when we got divorced. I really felt like I still stayed in touch with them for a while. I think it took a couple of years before they were, I don't want to say chose sides, but they have to be there to support their sister. And since
Of
she and
course.
I didn't maintain a relationship, I think they had to make that decision. Um, we're still Facebook friends and we interact occasionally, pretty rare, but occasionally. And then in this divorce, it's tricky because I think in a perfect world, I think my ex I think she would like to move on and forget that I'm around at all. I think that'd be her preference, but we have my daughter, so we have to learn to co-parent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I will, I see her whole family at birthdays and graduations, and so we're really having to try to negotiate that relationship. I feel the withdrawal from her family, um, and so I do. I think I miss her siblings and her dad a lot because I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I had a relationship. I had a conversation when this all went down with her dad, and it was just really nice.
Nice.
Um, it was very warm. Um, so I miss that, but we got to negotiate it with my daughter still.
Right. Well, I was thinking, because you have a daughter and she's a grandchild, so there has to be some negotiation. Your parents are going to see your ex at some point, whether it's at a high school graduation or a birthday party or something, some
Yeah,
family event.
they still do, and they still long for closeness with her.
Yeah,
They I think they would still want to have more of a relationship with her.
that's
I
that's nice.
and actually I'll share this story. So I'm a child of divorce too, and I remember being like 3, maybe 4. And one time my dad picked me up. He had me every other weekend, and he was pretty protective of that time. I think he picked me up on a Friday, and that night I was like, I think I was just tired, to be honest, but I called my mom crying, saying that I wanted to go home and that I didn't feel good. And my stepdad and my mom rushed out. They drove an hour to come get me. And my dad's like, it's bedtime. He needs to go to bed, and it's my weekend. What are you guys doing here? And, and it just came from love for them, right? I called them crying.
Yeah.
They were there for me, and they've always been that way my whole life. Like I could call them any minute and they'd show up.
Nice.
But it got into a screaming match between
wow.
my real dad and my stepdad. My stepdad's got a hot head. He's got a temper, a former Marine. And they got into a screaming match, and so that memory is like burned into my mind. I remember feeling like I caused it, right? Like I created that drama.
Yeah, that's gonna be intense.
I think I ended up staying with my dad, but then that relationship evolved till when I was like 13, and we would have Christmas and Thanksgiving together, and we would my stepdad used to like my real father was much older. My stepdad would be cleaning his feet and cutting his toenails and like really caring for him.
Oh wow.
And that had a huge impact on me. It really like I felt like I finally had one family rather than having 2 separate families. So I really hope. And then like as my dad, when my birth father passed, right before that, he called my dad, like, come get me out of this hospital. I think that just speaks to like the bond of their relationship. And so I really hope we can provide something like that for my daughter. I'd love her to feel like she's got one big family rather than 2 fractured families. So
that's really great. That's a great hope to have. Betty's in a broken home, I guess. It feels weird. So you talk about your kid, and it's a very intense relationship. There's a lot going on, and there's a world of difference between raising a child and raising a dog. I just have to, for some reason, feel the need to put in what little parallels there are. Betty bonded with my ex. It took a while. The first 6 months that we had Betty, my previous dog, Bocce, after I went, Bocce, you remember Bocce?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, the little guy.
Yeah.
So he was my ex's dog. I lived in Phoenix for 2 years for work, and it was really hard on my ex while I was down there for work, and she bonded with the dog, and they were really close. So she had problems bonding with Betty when we first got her. So Betty was my dog and followed me around and all these things. And then at a certain point, just something clicked between her and Betty. And Betty would snuggle up on her side of the bed instead of my side of the bed. Oh. And I'm not a jealous person. Yes.
Question, was Betty yours before, or did you get her with your ex?
I got her with my ex.
Okay. And did you have Betty then when you moved to Phoenix, or? No.
So the timeline is I moved up to Seattle, got Bocce, then I moved to Phoenix for work while my ex stayed up here. We were still married at the time. Moved back up here a couple years. Then we moved into the current house. And about 6 months after we moved into the current house, Bocce had a heart condition. So we had to put him down, unfortunately.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a very hard morning. And about a year later, we started looking into other dogs. And at first we were going to get another Boston Terrier or a French Bulldog, just because that's what Bocce was. And my ex said, I don't want to get another small dog. It's be too hard on me. So let's get like a 30-pound dog. And then I talked her into getting a 55-pound dog. I got really excited because pit bulls and American bulldogs and Staffordshire Terriers. And Bocce was great. He's a great little dog, and he was a tough little guy. But, I kind of want a dog I can wrestle with a little bit more. With Bocce, when we'd wrestle, I was basically just using my hand. With Betty, it's my whole body. She's just one giant solid muscle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is cute. So about a year after, I went on this, I was a pet adopter, pet finder, and I found a non-for-profit, and I adopted Betty, and I did all the paperwork and everything. Yeah, and it took about 6 months, and then Betty started following my ex around everywhere. And so I really thought that my ex would, not my ex, Betty would kind of force me and my ex to be civil to each other, and we'd do joint custody. I'd get
Hmm.
her for 1 week, she'd get her for 1 week. And my ex said, nope, you can keep the dog. I don't want anything to do with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had I, I had to split cats too. And
Oh.
so I stayed in our house while we were trying to sell it, and my ex
Mm-hmm,
moved out. And so I kept the
mm-hmm,
cats with me just because we had a big house and a
mm-hmm,
yard, and they already knew it. But then once we sold the house, I got a new place that doesn't allow any pets. They misled me. They told me it was cool at first. Once I applied and signed all the paperwork, they're like, oh, no pets. Um,
mm-hmm.
so she took both the cats, and I've gone to her place a couple of times, just spend time with my daughter. And it's weird, man. I've raised those cats since they were like babies, and the the male cat, he's a super lover, and
Mm-hmm,
the female cat, she's really skittish around new people.
mm-hmm,
Um, but she really attached to me. Like,
mm-hmm.
I think she claimed me. I was hers. So she'd put me to bed every night. She'd like come to she'd get at the top of the stairs and like call me up to the bedroom. And then after I got in bed, she'd like give me kisses and tuck me in and then take off for the night. Um, but then when since they've been living with my ex, I went over and the male cat just kept looking at me weird. And he got some pets from me, but then he took off. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that is not him. Like he sits down with everybody that comes new to the house. And I don't know. I don't know if he got his feelings hurt. I don't know if they thought I was dead. I don't know if they feel abandoned. The female cat, when she saw me, she stopped and she paused and she came over and she got pets from me. So I knew right away that because she's so skittish with new people, I knew she recognized me. But then she took
Mm-hmm.
off, and they haven't really like lingered with me much, and
Mm-hmm.
it surprised me. A little heartbreaking.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how I don't know how Betty would react to seeing my ex because it's been, a little over 2 years at this point. I don't know if
Yeah.
she'd even remember her, to be honest. I mean, pets have pets live in the moment. I think that's, my dog gets excited about eating the same 2 meals every day for the past, 3 years I've had her, and the same 2 or 3 walks every day. I mean, me and you would go absolutely nuts doing that, I mean, going, so yeah, I don't know. But, your daughter obviously is going to have some sort of shared memory,
Oh yeah.
especially because you're splitting time. It's not like 1 week, she's with your ex and then you show up and she's like, who is this guy? And then vice versa when you have her and then drop her off at your ex.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I'll just touch on that. Um, I do think, and not that I'm advocating for divorce, but I uh,
We
I
do not advocate for divorce on Owning Divorce. We do not bash marriage, nor do we say that divorce is easy for everybody. The point of this is just my little public announcement, is that for a certain sect of the population, divorce is a very good thing. And we want to get rid of that taboo that divorce sucks for everyone. Because me and you, we're loving divorce. I feel like I need like a little ching and like a little tooth glitter right there. Maybe during editing, you could put that in. Yeah. The more
ding.
you know. Ding.
um, but I feel like it's made me a better parent. Obviously, like as the relationship was deteriorating, we weren't giving my daughter attention. She was speaking up about it. She was asking for attention. She tried to
Mm,
get in between us. Well, I thought we just sounded like we were talking, but she could feel the tension, I guess.
mm,
Smarter than I realized. And she would try to diffuse it or distract us. Um, and so now, I pretty much all my free time was focused on like, how do I fix this relationship? Like, how do we get past these problems? I was so like focused on my ex instead of my daughter during that time. And that's changed now. Now, when I have her, she's got 100% of my attention.
mm,
Um, and so I also feel like I get a couple days to recharge or take care of my stuff so that when I have her, I'm focused on her. So I feel like I'm a better father now,
mm.
which has been really, I think, a positive. If there's a silver lining, let's call it a silver lining. That's what it is with her relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So has your relationship with your parents changed since the divorce?
Oh, it's gotten much better. I've never been closer, especially with my dad. I've never been closer with my dad than I have the last 2 years. When I started dating my ex, I was a teenager, I was in college, and my parents leaned really heavily on me. They didn't like the fact that I did things that all teenagers do, which is underage drink and smoke and do drugs and party and things like that. They wanted me to settle down, and in college, they wanted me to study. Well, they wanted me to look into grad school. They wanted me to get my MBA or get a JD. Something more future related. And I got a random liberal arts degree. I didn't put much thought into it. I was just enjoying college and having fun learning and hanging out with friends. So, there were all these fights that me and my dad used to have. My two closest friends from college I'm still friends with. They noticed that my demeanor changed after I talked to my dad, from being very happy, outgoing, to kind of being a little sad and feeling down. I didn't have a lot of positive experiences talking to my parents, just because they were trying to guide me in a direction that I didn't want to go. I think it's pretty natural. And then my ex came into the picture, and she saw that, and she thought she was protecting me by being my support group, and kind of, I think during some point, a lot of my friends during their 20s and 30s, they start getting past that with their parents, and they start rebuilding, building an adult, parent-child relationship. I didn't do that. In the last 2 years, I've been doing that with my dad. And it's been really great talking to him and getting to know him, and him getting to know me, and just talking about different aspects of my life. And, I ask him for advice, and sometimes he gives me good stuff. Sometimes it's, my dad is a guy who, he's 35 years older than me and has a different outlook at the world. So sometimes his advice isn't exactly the best for me. He gave me some dating advice.
I'm sure it was spot on.
It was weird, because I was thinking, I'm like, Dad, the last time you were single, Richard Nixon was president.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed in the 45 years since you were single, Dad. So it was very interesting. I just kind of laughed and smiled. And one of the areas my parents really respect right now is, they've given me advice, and I've talked to them. I said, listen, I'm 42. I was 40 at the time. I've been on this earth for X number of years. I think I've earned the right to run my own life and have a good understanding of what works for me and what doesn't. I don't give them a lot of details about my love life. The current that I'm seeing, they know about it because I posted something cryptically on Facebook, because my dad reads my Facebook posts and asks me questions about them. He never responds on Facebook, but it's kind of a weird way of communicating. So my dad, up until the current, this is my dad's line about my love life. Every once in a while, he'll say to me, he says, so you seeing anybody? And if I answer yes, my dad says, do you like her? To which I respond, yeah, Dad, I like her. And he responds, good. And if I say, no, I'm not seeing anyone, he says, you'll find someone. You're a catch. I'm like, thanks, Dad.
That's nice, man. That is really
nice.
Great.
It's really good, because my parents want me to have a dating life. They want me to have a significant other in my life that I'm happy with, but they want certain things from me that chances are aren't going to work out the way that they want it to. My parents, we've had a couple conversations. My parents want me to find a Jewish woman who wants to have kids and have a biological kid with her. Specifically, my dad wants me to have a son. So there's this weird thing in Judaism of being a priest and being a rabbi in Judaism are two separate things, right? Rabbi is something that you study. Yeah, most people don't know this. They're two separate things.
I didn't know Judaism had priests.
Yes. So I am a Jewish priest. My lineage, or whatever it is, it's a birthright that's passed down from your dad. So my dad was, my grandfather was, my dad did a family tree, and he
Wait,
traced it back at least 400 years, probably before that.
I just want to make sure I understand. So priest is something that descends the lineage?
Yes, it descends from the
You're a
father.
priest?
I'm a priest.
What?
Yeah. All right,
Nice.
here's something really cool. Leonard Nimoy Spock, this thing over here, right?
Yeah.
So during the high holidays, all the priests in temple, they have a blessing for all the Jews where they put their hands like this.
Oh,
So that's where
wow.
this comes from.
Trip out.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy, Jewish?
He's Jewish and he's a priest. Cohen is what they call
Whoa.
it. Yeah. I don't know if he's a Cohen or not, but that's where he got it from.
Wow. So then like your family wants you to pass on the priesthood?
Yes, me
Okay.
and my dad had this very intense conversation. By the way, I'm 90% sure, but I could be completely wrong, and Leonard Nimoy might not be Jewish, might not be a priest, but I think it is, or this is at least what they told me growing up in Jewish day school growing up. So, I only know what people tell me.
Yeah, fair enough. It's funny because in this day and age, right, people will be like,
yeah.
you were wrong.
You're wrong. So if anybody from Leonard Nimoy's estate listens to this and I'm wrong, I'm apologizing right now. Don't sue me. I don't have much. I'm divorced, man. She took half my assets. No. So me and my dad had this conversation. I've had three conversations with my parents since me and my ex split. The first one was me and my dad. We were talking, and he said, this is right before I started dating. This is actually right after I hooked up with a stripper. I flew to Chicago for the weekend, and my dad's talking to me about dating, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to start dating. He's like, well, are you going to date what about women who have kids? And I said, I'm not going to not date women who have kids. I don't really have a strong preference for one or the other. I think I talked about my different set of standards, how women who've had kids, if they're not as, I don't want to say physically attractive because that sounds horrible, but they have stretch marks, they have battle scars, right?
Make allowance, yeah. Tiger stripes, I think is what they call them.
Yeah, it's tank stripes, whatever. I think it's
tiger.
Tiger. I think it's tank stripes, whatever. It doesn't bother me. I think it shows that these women have lived, or they've done things, and I don't find it unattractive at all. The goddess had stretch marks, and she was very, very self-conscious about it. I loved it. I had no problem with it, right? Now, a woman who does not have a kid, if she's got stretch marks, I'm running, because that's just, I'm single and I don't have a kid. I have a dog, so I take really good care of myself. I eat healthy, although tonight I broke down and demolished a ton of chocolate chip cookie dough because why not? But, I eat whole ingredients. I work out a fair amount. I run 9 miles at least once a week. I hit the gym 4 or 5 days a week for an hour and a half. Intermittent fast when I'm trying to cut. All these things that I'm doing. And I don't expect another woman to have the same level of fitness. But if you're single and you don't have a certain commitment to fitness, it shows that it's just not important to you. And I can't be with someone who's like that, versus a woman who has a kid. She has other priorities, so I'm more understanding.
Yeah, I get
so
that.
So my dad was talking to me about maybe dating a woman who has a kid. My parents, told me that they think I'd make a really good father. And they really want to have a grandkid by me. My mom made a comment to my sister when she realized that me and my ex weren't going to have a kid, and she told my sister she has to have more kids because I'm not having kids. It was a joke, but it's the way my parents are. What?
Would you have kids?
With the right woman? Possibly. But there's a lot of things that have to fall into place. Right now, I'm really focused on, 18 years retiring, traveling the world. I love to, once the apocalypse ends, I'm going to take 3 weeks. I'm going to travel the world somewhere. I'm probably going to do that every year until I'm 60. And then I'm going to sell the house and just take off on a trip and find a little cottage off the ocean somewhere and just, I don't know,
Wow.
fish, or that's my plan. Yeah.
It's great,
Tan,
man.
swim. Yeah. So for me to have a child, and let's say for this example, even biological child, it's a complete shift in my lifestyle. So it'd have to be a very strong connection with that woman. And we'd have to agree on a lot of what our future is. And there'd have to be a very strong incentive for me. And have to be, if I met a woman that I felt a connection that I felt with my ex when I met her, I would not want to have kids with that woman. Not to say that I wasn't connected with my ex when I met her. I was head over heels in love with her and I thought she was the woman for me, but I didn't feel, and this is no reflection of her, but I didn't feel like it was a connection with someone that I'd want to have kids with. Right. So it's not beyond the realm of the possibility, but it's very unlikely, like 95% unlikely of having biological kids. I'd say like 85% of not adopting. There's a lot of children out there that are unloved, that are in unfortunate circumstances. And if I met someone who wanted to have a child, I'd probably try to talk to them. And we decided to have a child together. I try to talk to them about adopting first. But the trick with my dad's lineage is a couple things need to happen, which are just very, very unlikely at this point. So even though that priesthood is passed through the father, the mother, Judaism, religion is passed through the mother. So the mother has to be Jewish, right?
Oh.
So you need to find a Jewish woman, have a biological son, because women do not pass down the lineage, right? And I just found out that she cannot be divorced.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I mean, like, there's no way that's going to happen.
So a side note.
Yeah.
Completely random story. Do you mind if can I take it here?
Go. Yeah.
I was on Reddit and people were like asking, like, have you ever seen a marriage like go wrong at a bachelor party or something? And somebody told this story about this, the guy and the woman and the man getting married were Jewish. Well, she found out that he slept with her sister. But I guess in Judaism, you can't marry a spouse of a sibling. That's what they said in this Reddit post anyways.
No, that's not true.
Oh, well, that's what it said in this post.
It has to be, okay, so yes and no. It has to be known that you're doing that.
Doing what?
If you marry, so in Judaism, this is a weird thing, and we're really getting into the weeds here. There's a thing that if you marry a woman and she passes, you can marry the sister. But there's this weird ceremony, and this is in observant circles, where, like, I know this is going to sound weird and I'm getting it partially wrong, but the ceremony involves her spitting in your shoe. Right?
No, that sounds completely normal, man. It's just a Friday for me.
Pretty much. I don't really get the whole thing, but I had a teacher in high school who did this, right? So it's allowed, but there has to be like certain things. I think everyone has to know, and there needs to be certain rules and laws. It can't be like, hey, you slept with my sister, then you find out afterwards.
Well, so that actually makes sense though, because like you said, the she has to pass or whatever. So what she did is she didn't tell anybody. She didn't stop the wedding. She married him.
Yeah.
So that her sister couldn't have a relationship with him. So she married him, and then at the wedding, after it was all official, declared that she found out that he slept with her sister, and they were going to get divorced. To block her sister.
Yeah.
Like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Hardcore.
That is one determined woman.
I know. But anyways, you're saying, so you need to find a Jewish woman.
Jewish woman.
Never divorced.
Never divorced. and it has to be a son.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot of very specific things have to happen.
Yeah, so 400 years of lineage dies with me, because
Wow, hard, man.
yeah, none of my sibs are able to pass it on for a variety of reasons, and none of my cousins on my dad's side are able to pass it down. I'm the only priest out of that generation of kids.
Wow,
Yeah,
the last hope, man.
it's over. It ain't
Great white
happening.
hope. Oh
It ain't
man.
happening. I mean, there's just, you know, uh,
Let it,
I told my dad, and my dad was very tearful. He was choked up when we had this conversation.
no.
And I said, listen, I wish I felt differently about this. I'd love if I had that, if I felt like it was important to me, if I really wanted to, I mean, this is getting weird. I can get an arranged marriage. I know people in certain Orthodox, observant Jewish communities where they could set me up with someone who hasn't been divorced. And we just have to, if not the first kid's male, then the second one, and the third one, until we'd actually get one. It's possible to do that, but it doesn't go with my lifestyle choices and what I want for my life. And it makes me a little sad that, I can't do this for my dad, but I'm not going to change my lifestyle around. I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to live my life for my parents, what's important for them. I'm going to live my life on my values and what's important to me. And this kind of cuts into what you were talking about with your parents, kind of not understanding of what you're going through, and what they need to understand. And it's your parents, so you deal with it however you want. But if it was my parents, I'd say, I'm making my life decisions. I've lived my life. I've stand up on my own 2 feet, and this is what I know is good for me, and I'm being healthy and safe. And you should take happiness that your child is being responsible and enjoying their life post-divorce, something that for a lot of people is a very hard experience. For me, I've learned to embrace my new freedoms, and I'm dating this wonderful woman, and we're talking about future, just going on from there.
You're absolutely right. It kind of amazed me because when my mom was like recounting what she heard in the podcast, it was all like the salacious details, right? It was all like the sex stuff. She's like, how could I hear that? And I'm like, why'd you listen?
So two really important points. It's called sex. The episode title.
I could have chosen any episode to listen to.
Right. The first one is very straightforward. I mean, we go into a little bit of gory detail. I think I talk about falling asleep, going down on a woman. But outside of that, there's not a lot of gory detail, and it's about our divorce and how we reacted. And that would be a great episode for, your parents and my parents to watch. I think it's very heartfelt, very raw. And then further, we talked about how I set warnings. I'm like, hey, we're going to go into detail right now. You might want to fast forward the next couple minutes. And then you put timestamps on it at the bottom of the YouTube description. By the way, I don't think we've mentioned this. Anybody listening to this, subscribe, join the groups, do these things. I don't know. So, at the bottom of when we post videos on YouTube, you put timestamps letting people know where's where. So if something you feel is inappropriate, you can fast forward this. I just sent a message to a friend of mine who requested that we talk about COVID. And when I watched it, I realized we didn't talk about dating during COVID till an hour 15.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
14,
We didn't give our, yeah.
So I sent her a message, so you can watch it, but we don't start talking about dating during COVID till an hour and 14. So you can fast forward it or you can watch it. It's up to you. Right.
That's great.
There were several warning flags for your parents that they just chose to ignore.
Yeah, no, I think they were curious, right? Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any other sense. But
they definitely.
What they didn't hear is like the shame I experienced, how I've struggled with this my whole life. They didn't hear how about me and my girlfriend have worked through this and how it took us 6 months of like effort to like figure this out together. They didn't hear any of that. And maybe it's part of my age, or like my parents are getting older too. And I also have my daughter, but I'm in the same place as you are, where I really want to get closer to my parents, and I really just want to enjoy them, right? Like they've
Hmm.
got, you know,
Yeah,
hopefully
so many
20
years.
years, yeah,
Right.
whatever. I, I want to just spend this time with them, and because I have more time now being divorced, and I have that focused time with my daughter, I want to spend that time truly getting to know them. And I want to work on that relationship and make it closer, because I have kind of kept my distance, and I was getting my career going and I had all these other things going on that didn't allow me to do that. But at the same time, like really for me to feel comfortable hanging out with them, I need to be 100% me. Like as much
Hmm.
as I want to get to know them, I want them to get to know me. I'm
Hmm.
not a child anymore. And like you were saying about like the image thing, like I don't, like I am who I am at this point. I'm, in my 40s. I'm fully baked. Um, there there isn't this image that, maybe as a parent you have to mourn an image that you have for your child. I think about like your lineage thing too, and maybe
Hmm.
like as a parent you have to release that. Um, and then in terms of like pressure on a partner, they really haven't put a lot of. It's tough. I feel like my whole life my mom has been telling me what I should be looking for in a woman,
Hmm.
and I really, I feel like I didn't I feel like I didn't accept that, but I think subconsciously I did,
Hmm.
right? And my mom was a housewife. She had dreams of being a businesswoman, and she always told me like how she wanted to dress and she wanted to have this type of career and like see her name on a door. Like those are all things that my mom had hopes, and that was my ex. And so I don't
Hmm.
know if subconsciously that made me seek out somebody like my ex, or I have no idea how much of a role that
Hmm.
played. But it's not my new partner, but I'm
Hmm.
happy, and my new partner really is like what I need.
Hmm.
So it's like I think like yourself, like I need my parents to just love somebody who loves me,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and not try to like direct that. Try to figure it out.
Have your parents met your girlfriend yet, or is that
They have,
still?
they have.
Yeah. Well.
So on my moving day, we were way behind schedule.
Hmm.
I had misestimated the effort to get out of that place, and my girlfriend had offered, hey, if you need help, I'm happy to help. And
Hmm.
we were like 3 or 4 hours in the move, and I was like, I need you to come. And so she
Hmm.
came. She met my family. She actually met my daughter that time.
Hmm.
She met my sister, and my girlfriend's also massaged my dad. He's got a number of like injuries from a lifetime of hard work,
Hmm.
and she's a legit healer, like, and not in a mystical way. She does like physical therapy, massage therapy,
Hmm.
um maybe in a mystical way too, but um
We'll
she
save that for another episode.
um but she worked on him to help him. um by the way, side note, working out, I think we talked about this, but man, the other day my shoulder was hurting. We were working out together. I was like, yeah, my
Hmm.
shoulder's weird. She worked on it for like 3 minutes, and I just hopped back into that workout. No more pain. Hasn't hurt since. It's like,
Nice.
I need somebody to do body work on me while I work out.
Lucky bastard.
Did you have anything else on the family stuff?
I think there's always stuff to talk about, but it's a little after 11, so I
Okay.
think we do
Dang.
need to wrap it up.
Okay.
Uh, there's as usual, like we have this page of stuff that we want to go through, and we get through a little bit, and we can I think like continue this next time, or maybe we can mix it up because we probably still have some dating stuff to talk about. Maybe do one that's kind of fun and happy, and one that's a little more serious, like this one. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Let's do that.
But yeah, so I don't know. We're still working on the sign off thing. I'm gonna try with bye. I don't know. Hey, if you are listening to this and you've enjoyed it, like us, subscribe, do all that stuff. We do take requests if you want us to talk about anything specific. And I've posted things both on Facebook and IG explaining certain things. So there's a guide about the women that I've dated, because I'm not calling any of them by their names or referring to them by their number or by a nickname. And I've also talked a little bit about what the Mendoza line is and what my Mendoza line is. So I make some references. If you don't really understand, join the Facebook group, on the IG group. You can ask questions, requests, subscribe. If you are going through divorce and somehow you found us and, hopefully you've enjoyed it, it's divorce is a good thing. Your marriage was bad. Divorce is your second chance on life. So hang in there, try to find something positive. For me, it was hitting the gym that really helped me move forward. For Curtis, it was dating again, even like 3 weeks after, which I still think you're crazy for doing that, but you've had your girlfriend for 6 months now. So
Man, we're further than that. We're like at 8 months right now.
wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're about, I think, in fact, like we're almost at 9 months, I think, in a couple of days.
Wow, that's insane. And fuck you a little bit on that one too, by the way.
Thank you.
So,
I may fuck you if we get 1 million subscribers. The pegging.
First of all, you're not fucking me. No, let's put this in perspective. No, you are not having sex with me. I am taking a dildo and shoving it up my ass if we get 1 million subscribers on one channel, not combined. Yes, and I will do that on the podcast, and I will probably scream like hell because it will hurt. But yeah, if we post this on Reddit, I'm sure we'll get that overnight because people on Reddit are sick, sadistic bastards. But I will do that.
Give the people what they want, man.
Give the people what they want. Yes.
Sorry.
No worries. But yeah, if you're listening and you're struggling, reach out to either one of us. It gets better. It gets easier. It's a new outlook on life, and you have all these newfound freedoms. So enjoy them, embrace them, and kind of flip divorce on 180 from making it into something stressful and a tragedy to this new opportunity in your life.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add to that is I feel more in touch with who I am than I have ever before.
Yes.
That's due in part to that divorce. Awesome, man.
All right.
So like and
we'll be
subscribe.
back next week, right?
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Peace.
All right. Subscribe, do all that thing, like us, join our groups. Curtis, you have anything you want to join? If not, I feel like we need some music when you leave, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Fancy editing.
Fancy editing. All right. Later.